Today's call is, and I thought this would be a really good topic and I want to get deep down into this is money. So I want to talk about money this morning, and I want to talk about it in the way that this is something that I very early in my chiropractic career became very focused on, not because I had a love for money. And I'm going to take this into a biblical passage and the fact that it's not a love of money. It's not like I wanted to accumulate a lot of money to buy things or stuff. But what I see and what I foresaw, and I was very fortunate to surround myself with people who had very high net worths. I had a lot of friends who had very high net worths, which tremendously influenced my investing habits, which tremendously influenced the way I looked at money. But I look at this as a way of leverage. If I have a mission, if I have a purpose in my life, I know I can fulfill that purpose. I know I can accomplish my mission a lot more efficiently if I have a great financial foundation behind me. I have a lot more leverage, I have a lot more power, I have a lot more influence on other people if I can have a good foundation. And ultimately that's led to a a beautiful life for our family and our kids and retirement and all this other stuff is that we have this freedom now that we can kind of do whatever the heck we want to do and don't have to worry about anything else. Like I don't have to rely on anything else because I need the job or I need the anything, right? So it's a great position to be in. So I want to talk about money this morning and try to paint that into a chiropractic practice and hopefully give you guys some ideas or some perspective on how to really create a great net worth for yourself moving forward. So therefore you can accomplish whatever it is your mission is, create more freedom, fulfill your mission, whatever that purpose might be. Okay. So I've made a few notes here. I'm going to share my screen. So I've titled this Chiropractor Money Rules. So this is wealth creation for chiropractors. So the biggest thing, and I think the number one thing, and I kind of alluded just to this now, is he who has the money has the power. And I like having the power. I like having the influence. I like being able to dictate the circumstances or at least lead the circumstances in certain situations. So when I apply this to practice, when I have interactions with patients, I want to not be worried about money. So one of the things that we did in practice was made it every way possible for that new patient that was closing, going through the day, 1 day, 2 day, 3, converting to their care plan to prepay for their care. And I wanted the majority of people to prepay. And we had a really good success rate at prepaying for a couple of reasons. Number one, then I became the bank. They're a lot less apt to quit when they've prepaid for their care. And and typically like the follow through with everything was much greater, and it really removed the stress of everything, removed the stress from the team. They wouldn't have to worry about the money, they wouldn't have to worry about putting through credit cards every month, they wouldn't have to worry about people not paying their bill or going after people for money, whatever that was. So prepayment is king. So like how did that happen? Well, this is one thing that drove our system. So we, with that in mind, tried to do everything we can to encourage all those patients to prepay. So in other words, our systems had to be really good. Day 1, day 2, day 3. I did the day 1 phone calls. I did the day 2 phone calls. Everything was in place to create that trust, create the rapport, build urgency so that that person would therefore want to prepay for their care. And that's really what we put in place. And here's the big thing. And what I would suggest to you guys is that if you don't have a prepayment program for your care plan, figure it out and make it so that it would be silly not to take that option. So in other words, you don't have to discount the prepay option significantly. I mean, it's nice to have a little bit of a discount if they prepay as opposed to their monthly payment. I certainly hope that the majority of you are still not accepting pay-as-you-go people. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. Pay-as-you-go is killer for practice. There's no commitment there. It's like, imagine if you were the gym owner and you were allowing people to come in and pay for every workout, every time they come in to work out. Like how many times would seriously people work out? I mean, would you have people coming in 3 days a week, 4 days, 5 days a week, or daily for that matter, working out in your gym if they were paying every time? It wouldn't happen. It's the same mentality. So figure out the prepayment program. So what we did is we had bonuses for those people who prepaid. Like it wasn't even necessarily a discount. They would get a free nutritional consultation or a free weight loss consultation, which involved, I mean, in our case, it was getting weight on the Tanita scale. We would sit down and do, and all the team, this was all team driven. That wouldn't be something I would do. They would get their measurements taken. They would get their blood pressure and heart rate taken. So we'd get all that analysis done. And therefore, even that was a free service for those who prepaid, where normally we charge for that. We would give them a diet plan with a recipe book and a bi-week, this was a 2-week meal plan. So it would tell them exactly what to eat for 2 weeks to lose weight. And it was based on like kind of a keto, paleo type of diet, cutting down their carbs, but it worked fantastic and it was free. So it provided a lot of value. And they got that if they prepaid. But what that did is now all of a sudden you had all these people doing, coming in for their nutrition plan, and therefore then we'd recommend supplements, and then we would then therefore upsell them on supplements. So it was really a beneficial program. So they prepaid for the chiropractic care, they got into nutrition, and they're buying more supplements. So figure out what it's going to take for you and your office to get prepayment. Second thing, he who has the money has the power. Invest into your team. And I'm going to say, and I just had a conversation with one of our clients this morning who and here's the concern, is that they weren't getting a lot of new patients from their advertising into the office. These new patients, they would engage, they would book their appointments, but then they were getting a lot of no-shows. And I said, so we went over the process of how they contact the people, what's said, all this stuff. And I said, so have you incentivized your team to get them into the office, to actually go the extra mile and do that extra call, or take the leads home in the evening, to call them in the evening after dinner, to actually get in touch with them, confirm their appointments, or actually book appointments? He goes, no, I haven't done that. I said, there's the difference. If you're incentivizing them to do that, then they have this just innate subconscious reason to go the extra mile because there's something in it for them. So if you haven't incentivized your team, if you don't have a profit sharing thing for your team, I would say put that in place or incentivize them to get those new patients in the door. It will make you money. So paying your team a little bit of incentive or a bonus will make you money. So I hope you guys have decided to do that, or if you haven't done it, put that in place. And if you want more help with that, I'm happy to talk to you about. There's actually a video on my YouTube channel about how to bonus your team.
If I could jump in on there, one thing, Carl, just on the prepay and getting the buy-in from patients. What makes this step super easy is things that we've trained on before, what we're going to be training on again in October at the seminar in my office. It's having a really strong, powerful day 1 through day 4, 5, whatever the system is you're using. But it's going through that and making sure the patient's in control during that time. Just had a patient start this week. They were at report on Tuesday. He's an architect from downstairs in my building. And on his day 4, I asked him, like, any other questions? Everything makes sense? He goes, no, everything's great. He goes, I just want to say, I really want to commend you on the operation you have going on here. And when he said that, I'm just like, where's this going, right? But he's like, I've been to a number of other chiropractors and some really big offices, and I've gone in crisis. And then he said, for lack of better terminology, they would keep me coming back. And he said, it kind of made sense. He said, but I kind of felt like a money grab because I felt fine. Right. And it was on more of a pay-per-visit model. And so I'd stick it out for a while and then I'd go away again, end up in crisis again. And he showed up in my office, like on a cane, can't walk, like all this sort of stuff. He says, but what made this easy for me and why I had no problem doing your one time and why I really feel this is the right place is I truly understand how my body works. I truly understand what's wrong and what the plan is to move it back in the right direction. And so this is the piece, like getting really strong in your day 1, 2, 3. Like this is what's going to give the patient the confidence that all of a sudden a one time's no problem. All of a sudden makes it a lot easier for them to have an open conversation with your team, right? So that make sure you lay that foundation so all of these pieces then become easier.
This is such huge stuff, guys. So and here I want to kind of get into this, and this will I want to try to keep this call short and tight here, but again, this is great conversation, and I think this type of conversation will open your perspective and open your mind up to help you make more money, as it did for me in partnering or being good close friends with people who had high net worths, who were very successful entrepreneurs, because it gave me different mindset. Never trade reputation for money. So just because it may bring in another flow of income doesn't mean it's right for you. So don't ever do anything that's going to tarnish your reputation, even if it's for a short-term gain. So keep your reputation clean, especially if you're in this for the long term. Indecision loves poverty, and this is a big one. So here's the talk on this is that money loves speed. One thing I see with very wealthy entrepreneurs or people that own big businesses, they're in a position where they need to make decisions quickly and they can't sit and dwell about decisions. So some of you know there's things that you should change in your office. There, you know there's things you should change with your team, your procedures, whatever that is, and you stew about it and you just dwell around about it and you can't make a decision. Money loves speed. And here's the difference is that you can make a decision. Sometimes it's the right decision and you move in the right direction. Sometimes it's the wrong decision, but therefore you correct it, you learn from it, and you make a new decision. That tends to be much more successful than just kicking the can around and waiting and procrastinating until you finally decide to do something. Wealth loves time. So when you're investing into something, when you're making change or you've made a change in your office, you need to give it time to start to monetize. It's the same thing. I have this conversation with marketing. I have this conversation with just when you change systems in your office, you need to give it time. Your team has to adapt to it. Everything has to adapt to it. When you invest into something, it takes time for that investment to make some money. And indecision loves poverty. So your inability to make decisions will keep you poor. Money flows where attention goes. So this is the thing, and this all comes back to your systems and procedures in your office. So again, basic template stuff is that every single shift, you should be huddling with your team, going over your day sheet. Look at the people that are coming in. Think about who they are, where they're at in their care, what do they need, what are their concerns, what are the bottlenecks. Know exactly what's happening every single shift, not every day, every shift. You have 2 shifts a day, 3 shifts a day, whatever. Before every shift, you huddle with your team so you are on the ball as far as what's going on. So the communication amongst your team is great. That's money loves that. When you have good systems in place and you're aware of what's happening, money loves that. Staff meetings. Keeping good communication amongst your staff is so vital. Your team has to work as a unit. So having those regular staff meetings, write them in solid yellow lines and don't ever miss them. So moving forward, that just again helps attract finances and attract money into your office. Your trainings, that should be something you do at least on a weekly basis with everybody in your team and yourself to go over your scripts, go over the procedures, identify where those roadblocks are. Day 1 and day 2 phone calls, I never ever missed those. I'm telling you, when I started doing those, and it was probably around 1995, after a couple years in practice, I thought, hey, that's a pretty good idea because I heard a coach talk about it. I started doing them. I saw the value in it and I never ever missed. And I'm telling you that truthfully, I had systems in place so I would never miss those phone calls. And the marketing calendar, we were always looking at least 6 months out, sometimes 12 months out, that we had our events in place long in advance to make sure that we weren't reactively marketing. Like, oh my gosh, we had a low new patient month. We better throw in a screening. We better throw in another dinner, whatever the case. We were very systematic with our marketing. And stats. You can't make decisions about your office and your finances, your expenses, your growth without knowing where you're at, without knowing where the bottlenecks are, without knowing where things are not following through properly. So it's really important to keep those stats and keep them up to date. And we had one person in charge of keeping stats, and she kept her clipboard. She kept everything on a clipboard, and it came to every huddle, every staff meeting, every training. She had it all the time. And I could ask her exactly on whatever day, randomly out of the blue, she could tell me exactly how many new patients we had, exactly how many leads came from our online marketing, exactly what our collections were at that time of the month. Like, she knew exactly what was going on. So, and that helped us to determine our decision making. Next one. Home and business life must be aligned. This is a big one. And I want to tell you this quick little story here. So when I was in university, one of my classmates, and this was in my last year of university, one of my classmates, Marvin was his name, super nice guy, he's from Ottawa, and he had a guy living with him. And I don't even remember his first name, but we called him Pogue Riley because he was not at school. He was not a student. He was actually out of work. So he was collecting Pogie and he was living the life of Riley. So affectionately, we called him Pogue because he's on the Pogue and he's living life Riley. So he's Pogue Riley, and he spent more money than anybody else, but he was always poor. He never had any cash because he was always out partying and just so. So I guess what I'm saying is that my dad always taught me this and I always remember this is live below your means. We lived a very humble life. I mean, my dad didn't have a heck of a lot of money, so we lived a very humble life because we had to. But that's something that Kim and I adapted years ago is we lived a very humble life. I'm going to tell you. So when we were at our peak for many years, I mean, we were cranking in our office for many years, collecting probably around 150K a month. Our expenses were probably around 50K a month, and our living expenses were maybe another 15 to 20 per month. I mean, we lived fine. We didn't live lavishly, but we lived well. So that took up out of that 150K, it took up about 70K. So we had about 60 to 80K a month in profit every single month. And every month I just kept investing it, kept investing it. And of course, I had friends who got me into some commercial mortgage investing, commercial construction and real estate investing. And that made a tremendous return. It was very secure investments, but every month that money just went into investments. It went into, and here we are. I mean, now we have a fantastic net worth, and we can sit back and enjoy the fruits of that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that figure out a system based on what your income is now to put money away and don't even think about it. Like, don't make money to spend it. Live a comfortable life, but live below your means. And what happens is you build this worth behind you that gives you this freedom and it gives you this power. Okay. And the last part of this is that don't finance anything that depreciates. So whether it's a vehicle, whether it's something that is going to decrease in value over time, don't finance anything where you're paying interest to borrow money to have something or acquire something that's going to depreciate in value. If it's a piece of equipment in your office that's going to make you money, fantastic, finance it. If it's a piece of real estate that's going to increase in value over time, fantastic, finance it. Or even, and I'm going to go to the next slide here. Sorry, it's even the next slide, but I'm going to talk about the fact that if you can use financed money to buy an income earning asset, that even better, like let's say it's a property that you can use for an Airbnb. So not only is the property going to increase in value over time, but that property will actually make you money because you're renting it out and collecting that rent money. That's an income earning asset, and it's an income earning appreciating asset. Fantastic. Finance that all you want. So, but really be careful in financing things that depreciate. So on to the next slide here. So ignore money advice from poor people. And again, here's an interesting thing. My dad had a good friend, and he was a super friend of my dad. And I mean, no disrespect to him, but he was into everything. Like he was into anything that was going to make him a quick buck. And his reputation preceded him. So he got into this multi-level marketing financial advisement group. It was a company called Primerica. I don't know if some of you may remember that, but Primerica, and I don't think they're around anymore, but they were set up as a multi-level marketing where you could buy into this company, become a financial advisor, and you would make a commission. But then everybody above you made part of that commission. So they had all these financial investing products. But this guy really had no net worth. He was borrowing money from Peter to pay Paul, and he was on me like like a fly on you know what, and trying to get us to invest into him. And actually, finally, in a kind way, sat down with him and I said, "Okay, you want me to invest my money with you? What type of net worth do you have?" Well, he kind of looked at me and I said, "I want to know." I said, "Why would I invest my money with somebody that I don't have enough confidence in to build their own net worth?" And I think it was kind of a slam, but it was true. Why would I put money in, spend time with, or spend my money with people that haven't been able to build a net worth for themselves? So spend time with wealthy people. Look at your circle of friends and hang around with, like, purposely hang around with people whom you respect. If you've got patients in your office who are very successful business people, maybe self-made, entrepreneurial, ask them to go over coffee, go for lunch with them, ask them questions. This is where you learn such stuff. And I was so fortunate to have people in my life and a friend group that had that. And I learned so much from that. So here's things to think about is that rich people buy time. So rich people don't worry about the things that they need to do on a regular daily or weekly basis that they could pay somebody a lot less than the time it would take for them to work in their own business, which would be much more financially advantageous. Poor people buy stuff, okay? Poor people buy things, they buy stuff. Ambitious people buy skills, and lazy people buy distraction. So, if you have Netflix and you have Spotify and you have Paramount Plus and you have Crave accounts, these are things that seriously, they're set up to drain you of your regular money. So be careful of that. Next thing is that money flows to the person who needs it least. So here's the thing, and and this was great at the office, and I remember getting into this attitude where I actually got to the point where we were so, and I was probably in my maybe early 40s, mid 40s, where I finally felt like we have such a great nest egg. I don't have to work. Like I really don't. We could lose everything right now as far as our practice goes. It could be taken away from us, and we would be so financially stable that we didn't have to work the rest of our lives. And it was such a freeing feeling, but it allowed me the freedom to talk with authority in the practice. And therefore, like I got to the point where I was doing doctor support and I did not care if anybody signed on. So I could talk completely unfiltered about chiropractic and about what we did in our office. And hey, this is exactly what we do. And we love you. But if you don't like it, there's other chiropractors in town. You can certainly go with them. If you want a quick fix, this is not the place for you. So, but what happened was our conversions actually increased. Like we actually got better because I could talk with that authority. And I think that's what happens is that you gain such power and authority and leverage when you need nothing. You don't need anything from anybody, and you can just talk with that freedom. And I think the more you can get yourself to that place now, the better it will turn out for you financially in the long run. Next thing, have a slush fund of 6 to 9 months. Okay. And this is one thing, again, this is a friend of mine said, listen, just have this. And I'm going to go back to the time I remember we were probably maybe 3 or 4 years into practice. We started growing, started making a lot of money. Well, sure, you start making a lot of money. And the next thing you know, your next tax year, you owe a lot of tax. And I wasn't prepared for it. And I remember our accountant sitting down with us going over our financials for the year and said, wow, you've had such a good year. You made a lot of money this year. And guess what? You owe close to $100,000 in tax. And I was not ready for that. I went, what? Like, what do you didn't forewarn me. You didn't tell me to put money away. And I didn't realize at the time. I was kind of a little, wet behind the ears at that point, and I didn't understand that. So we actually had to borrow money to pay our taxes. And I said, that's never happening again. So we then started a slush fund to keep an account for things that were unseen. So whether it was a tax bill, or whether it was, a new roof on our house, or let's say one of our cars got broken down, or whatever the case was, we had to purchase a new. So it was for big ticket items that we were unprepared for, new furnace, these types of things. And it wouldn't set us back because we had that account of money just sitting there. So have a slush fund that's going to keep you sustainable for 6 to 9 months. Okay. Surprises happen. So be prepared.
The only thing I would add to that as well, just going back, and that may be included in your slush fund, but I also maintain a separate like tax account. So it's 15% goes off the top to stay there, just so you're covered for surprises, just so there's no stresses on the system as you come along, or you overspend or anything like that, knowing that that's at least that is coming from a business side.
So next slide. So invest in income, as I mentioned before, income earning assets. So again, especially if the assets appreciate in value. So an income earning asset. So maybe that's a decompression table for your office, especially if it's a team driven type of modality. I've had multiple conversations with people who have now got SoftWave machines in their office. That seems to be a really hot item. And not that maybe it's right for you, maybe it's not. That's something you have to determine. But that is something that people seem to be flocking to at these days. SoftWave, Shockwave, StemWave type of machines. And they're very, very lucrative as far as income, and a staff can run them. So that's an income earning asset. So to finance something like that would be a great idea because it's going to make you more money than what you're paying out to have it. Decompression table. These are great things to have in your office. It doesn't take your time. A staff person can run it. and it's going to make you money. So then you get into other things like real estate. So a rental property, like an Airbnb or a long-term rental type of thing, it's an income earning asset. And as I mentioned earlier, especially if the asset increases in value over time, like a real estate thing, that's a great investment. That's something that's going to make you wealthy over time. So instead of thinking, what type of return can I get on this? Am I going to get 6%, 8%, 10%, 12% on an investment? My question to myself is that if I invest into this, how long is it going to take for this property or this investment to double? Right. And hopefully if this can double in the next year or the next couple of years, then okay, this is a good investment for me. What is my security on that event? If this went totally bad, am I going to get my investment back? And that's my thinking of investing now. And that's why I've really put a lot of my income and money into real estate and mortgages, because they're very secure. If something goes bad, you take over the property, you get all your money plus penalties plus investments or plus interest back. So look at your investment. And I'm going to say, so do I have money in mutual funds? Absolutely, I do. Not a heck of a lot. But the fact is, when you have money in mutual funds, especially if somebody is managing those mutual funds, you're paying them very well. Like they're taking 2% off the top. So you invest 1,000 or 100, let's say you invest $100,000 in mutual funds. That investment advisor, financial advisor, is taking 2,000 of that right off the top, and they're taking 20% of any gains that you get over time. So if you're making 10% on your investment, they're taking 2% of that right off the top. So the ability to earn a lot of money with mutual funds, even though they're typically very secure, the ability to earn a lot of money is very limited. Know how to get your money back. So if you're going to invest in something, you know, and I'm going to tell you this from experience, I've made a few high risk investments that have gone bad, and we've lost a significant amount of money. There was one guy that talked me into investing into his coffee shop, which he was going to take into a franchise that was going to rival Starbucks, and he had a big vision, and he had a reputation of being in the business before, and he'd built a restaurant chain called Williams Coffee Pub or Williams Fresh Cafe. If you're familiar with that, there's like 32 places. And then he sold that and got into this new thing. And I thought, okay, the guy knows what he's doing. He really sold me on it. Well, sure enough, it went bad. And we invested quite a bit of money into it, but it was a lesson learned. I didn't have a situation at that point to get my money back. I was looking too much at the starry-eyed of, big returns. There was another one, which was a gaming company that we invested into, and a few different of my colleagues invested into that years ago, that went bad as well. So which gives me to the point here is I invested into those investments thinking I was going to make a lot of money because of the fear of missing out, right? It was the FOMO. So be careful with FOMO with investing. So in other words, FOMO means go slow. Be careful with investments that you get so emotionally attached to and you think you're going to lose out and you end up putting money away, because in most cases, they're not going to be what you think they were. Just be cautious with that. Here's the thing is that I want chiropractors to be wealthy. Like, it is so important for our profession to advance in the world of healthcare if we have chiropractors who are powerful, who have leverage, who have the ability to talk freely about our profession and have power to grow the profession. So if we have 70,000 chiropractors in North America or 80,000, whatever the number is, I want them all to be extremely wealthy so we can advance the profession so greatly. So biggest thing, I think action steps is when you go to your office, get your systems in place. Make sure that your systems are conducive to convert as many people as possible into care plans. So for those of you who are still seeing patients with the pay per visit model, that's the first thing to change. Get your education right and encourage those people to get onto some level of care plan, and then have the incentive in place for them to prepay for their care. You'll increase your numbers, you'll increase your retention, you'll increase your patient base, and you'll put a lot more money in the bank. That's the first thing. So have everything in place: huddles, staff meetings, trainings, incentivize your team. You do that, and things will start to naturally follow.